Okay, so here is the second little talk we are going to do in this runner series. Today, what we're going to focus on is what doctors actually think when you walk through the door. So it might not come as a surprise to you, but many of the medical professionals that you are seeing for running related injuries don't really understand the demands of your sport. And what's even more concerning is they don't really understand you as an athlete and ultimately as a person. And happens is this becomes extremely detrimental because there are certain types of injuries that are more specific to runners. And if they are unidentified at the time of your doctor's appointment, or if they're not treated appropriately in certain stages of their development, it can really lead to you being brushed off and ultimately having a surgery or a long layoff from training that could have been completely avoidable. So I really like this picture here. It pretty much sums up what it means to be a distance runner. You need a certain mentality, right? If you want to get better and do stuff, you have to do stuff, right? Like run in the rain or run in the snow. And this makes sense to people like you and me, but it does not make sense to people like this guy. This picture, right? This quote is something that has been said to me before numerous times, or some variation of this quote. This guy just ran 26 mile and he's wondering why his knee hurts, right? So like all humans, we have preconceived notions and ideas about people before we even meet them. And this is true for medical professionals. It's true for you. It's true for me. It's true for everybody. A good example is, say, like I have a UFC fighter coming in, and I have certain thoughts about how that encounter might go based on my experience working with that population, right? Versus like if one of my mom's teacher friends comes in, right? Two different types of people, different backgrounds, all that situation. And the reality is sometimes I'm accurate in my preconceived notions, and oftentimes though I am not. So in the medical community, runners are really viewed as a different breed of person, right? A different breed of athlete. And the orthopedic surgeons and the sports med docs and even some of the PTs that I've worked with, they refer to them as crazy, right? Like as in, here comes another crazy runner, or I'm sending another crazy runner your way. I have another crazy runner for you, right? This guy just ran 50 miles and he's wondering why his back's stiff. You take care of him. Like these are things that I've literally heard in my career, I mean, dozens and dozens of times. And what happens is what happens, the fact is that these are the people that are trusting with your care. So they say this jokingly, right? The reality is that oftentimes the mindset leads to runners being brushed off. They get poor advice, or maybe they get injections that are premature and almost, I mean, they could be detrimental to risk or increasing the risk for further injury. Or you're put in a boot and told, I'll see you in 4 weeks, right? And then this picture here, right? What seems to be the problem? It hurts when I do this, then don't do that, right? This is not helpful information, but oftentimes this is the information that we are given, right? Take it easy. Famous last words. And that's what we just talked about, my insight as a medical professional working with other medical professionals who see runners. I Google searched running doctor advice or something to that effect, and this is one of the first things that popped up was a message board. I didn't even know message boards like this existed still, but here we are. And the problem is, and the fact is that runners who see medical professionals for running related injuries, they realize that there's an issue. And this is very hard for me to read as a medical professional because this is what I'm striving to end. But I just circled some of the highlights here, right? So, what a complete waste of time. Not once have I gotten anything of value from it, meaning going to see a doctor. They said dozens of times. I've been to the doctor twice for running related injuries. Both times they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But I got on the boards and did some research and found what I needed. This person is literally saying that he would rather search a message board with people who are non-medical professionals than actually go to a doctor. If you suggest you'd like to try something a little more aggressive than sitting on the couch for 6 weeks with a bag of ice, they look at you like you have 7 heads. Lastly, realistically, the doctor should be your last resort. Insane. So I asked the question, right? Are medical professionals really the problem? Are doctors the problem? Are PTs the problem? And like anything, right? It's not really a straight yes or no answer. There's going to be, both. And I put this question here, right? Would you let a knee surgeon perform your heart surgery? And that's obviously like a very extreme example. But the reality is you're kind of doing the same thing or taking the same approach if you were going to a medical professional who does not understand what it is you were trying to accomplish with running, or whatever your goals might be, even not running related. And the majority, like we said earlier and in the first video, majority of medical professionals, they just simply don't understand runners. They don't understand the mentality. They don't understand the injury mechanisms and the progression of injuries. They don't understand the rehab for sure, right? The demands of the sport are poorly understood, and the lifestyle, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. An issue that we face, and this is just in medicine in general, but specific to runners, because that's obviously what I'm talking about right now, is it's not as simple as going to your local sports medicine doctor or your local PT who's down the street just because he takes your insurance and there's convenience, right? He's close to you and it's not going to cost you a lot of money, because no medical professional's office is going to turn you away, right? If you call them up and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, you are an orthopedic surgeon. Do you treat runners? I will guarantee you with 100% certainty that they are going to say, yes, I treat runners. Same with every outpatient physical therapy clinic I have ever seen in my life, right? You call them up and they say they treat runners. You go there and what are they doing? They're working with people who are like your grandmother, right? And my grandmother, or they're working with people who look nothing like a runner. And these are the ones who are treating you, and they're putting cookie cutter approaches out to help you get better. And reality is, it goes back to this slide, right? It's a waste of time. Problem is, in addition to these things, is that it ultimately becomes detrimental to your health. And you see this oftentimes with bone-related injuries. And I'm going to go in on bone-related injuries over the next few weeks because I've just seen so many people's lives changed as a result of poor management of them. But there's oftentimes so many preventable surgeries like this guy, right? I don't know what his situation was. I just Googled him. I think he's a soccer player, not even a runner, but it doesn't matter. Bone stress injury, right? If they are mismanaged, they can lead to a complete fracture in a surgery and put pins and screws and all these horrible things, right? And that's an extreme example, but it happens far more often than you would think, right? And it's a difference between, seeing a certain medical professional is a difference between getting this outcome and getting this outcome. You got this stud of a human here crossing a finish line, Rehoboth Beach. It's a great race. So this client, Kristen, she is who really sparked this kind of whole thing I'm doing here with runners. And she came to me with a pretty typical case. This is not a real x-ray here. I just Googled x-ray of a foot, and that's what popped up. Got the Shutterstock thing on there, so full transparency. But she is a case where she was brushed off and she was given really incomplete advice. She reached out to me at AMP with an 8-week history of pain on the outside of her foot that is getting worse. And what happened is the pain would start, when it started 8 weeks ago or 8 weeks prior to her reaching out, it would start a few miles into her run. And she would stop, walk home, and the time that it took to get home, right, is actually as soon as she would stop running, it would feel better, right? She had no pain at the time at rest. She could walk, she could go upstairs, she could hop around, like perform little hops in her workouts and those types of things. But when she hit a couple miles of running is when the pain would start. So in my head, as someone who treats runners and who is a runner, my initial thought would be, if someone presented to me like that, is that they're experiencing early stages of a bone stress injury. Right, and a bone stress injury, we'll go into it more in other videos. It's really when a bone doesn't get adequate rest. It doesn't get a chance to heal between stressors. In the case of running, it doesn't get a chance to recover from repeat bouts of training. And what happens then is it doesn't get the ability to adapt and get stronger. So there are certain areas that are high risk for these. And any time that anyone describes their situation, such as Kristen did, in one of these areas, that has to be the first thing that the clinician thinks. So when she went to the orthopedic surgeon who, quote unquote, works with runners, they took an x-ray. And the problem with this is why I put the picture of the x-ray here, right, is that an x-ray in an early stage of a bone stress injury does not really show anything. You wouldn't expect it to show anything. You're going to expect it to show something like a fracture, right, or maybe a stress fracture or something along those lines. But given the area of her pain, right, maybe the x-ray was justified at the time. She was able to walk in, on her own 2 feet without problem. So I probably wouldn't have even referred her out if she had come to see me at the time of injury. And what happened is she was told that there is no injury to your bone after receiving an x-ray. The advice she was given is that you just need to take it easy for a few days and then ease back into running. Take it easy are like famous last words, because that has no meaning. There's no context to that. And you tell a runner that, it's like giving like an alcoholic a six pack and telling them not to drink it, right? So as a runner, if I hear, oh, I'm afraid I have a bone injury, and this doctor's telling me I don't have a bone injury, I'm going to go home from that doctor's office and I'm going to go run, right? And that is what Kristen did. In her mind, she was taking it easy because as a runner, right, she was running at lower intensities now. She was running less mileage, even though her foot still hurt. In her mind, she thought she was doing what the doctor told her to do. So there's a disconnect, right? And that's where the problem is, right? One, x-rays, like I said, right, they don't diagnose bone stress injuries in their early stages. So even though a fracture was ruled out, that wouldn't have even been on my radar at the time. Maybe it would have been a little bit, but I would have expected it to have been ruled out because of the fact that she walked into the clinic on her own 2 feet without pain, right? So she was sent on her way with this bone stress injury and no real guidance. The additional thing that's frustrating is even if you're told that you need to rest, right, or you're given some kind of advice, you need to understand how to progress bone healing, right, how to make your bone stronger and how to ultimately get back to running. It has nothing to do with and you need the advice, right, on how to reduce the likelihood of these types of things ultimately happening in the future. One of the biggest predictors of bone stress injuries and stress reactions in a bone are previous history of stress reactions. So there's more to it than just the running and the recovery aspect of it. There are other factors that need to be considered and lifestyle changes that probably need to happen. So this is a clear example of something that happens every single day, especially with running related injuries. And it happens, unfortunately, because the medical professionals who treat them, right, they're not used to working with that population. And the thing that ultimately happens is that you are the one who suffers, right? And a simple misdiagnosis is what's going to take a person who really just needs to better understand how to manage load in training sessions. And it takes them from ultimately being able to have a short full recovery to having a potentially life-changing surgery, and it might compromise their ability to ever run again. And to me, that's pretty messed up. So what do you do about it, right? It's not really about calling people out, and I don't mean to call out, well, I don't think I'm calling specific people out, but calling out a medical community is not going to be the answer, right? You as the client and the potential patient is the person who needs to advocate for yourself. And what does this mean, right? This means that you need to look for trust and not convenience. It's not about going to the doctor who's closest to you, who has a certain title, right? It's about finding someone who you're going to able to potentially work with over the long haul, right? Because as you know, as a runner, like, you're not going to have one injury, you're going to have multiple injuries. Large, you're going to have some small injuries, you're going to have some in the middle that might just need like a little advice on what to do with. So building that trusting relationship is where it's at. And that's what my next point is here, right? Think long-term relationship, not a quick fix. Anyone who is offering you a quick fix solution to a running related injury, or just in general an injury, right, they're smoke and mirrors, right? It's BS, and it's not going to be what you need. And then this one is obvious here. Obviously, I think I've kind of harped on this point, but seek professionals who work with runners, not who your insurance company tells you to go to. And this is all kind of tied into the first two little bullet points there. And then lastly is just ask questions before you schedule an appointment. There are certain things that a person who works with runners would know, right? They would understand certain types of injuries and be able to explain certain type of injury progressions to you. And I can't list all those things here, obviously, but my email is on this the end of this presentation. And so if you have questions about, you're looking into seeing a medical professional, just let me know. I can tell you if it's the right person or not. And why this is important is because the goal has to be to reduce the risk of something like this happening from a poorly managed injury, right? The goal has to be to get you the information you need to make sound decisions, to get you to a medical professional who who can help guide you through a process. Because ultimately, this, where you might have like a 9 to 12 or even longer recovery back to running, including like a long layoff, right? To this, which might just be a simple management of an injury for a week or two and progressively getting you back to running at the level you're accustomed to. And this slide here is just, it's a shame, right? And these comments are a huge reason why AMP was created, right? So for you, it's just important to know that there are good medical professionals out there, and going to a message board for your medical advice is really harmful for yourself, and ultimately just like the trajectory of your running career, right? So understand that while these situations exist, and they exist in everywhere. I mean, every type of sport, you're going to see crap like this. And this is exactly why AMP was created, because we need to end these types of things. And that starts with medical professionals realizing that there's a problem and doing something about it. And that starts with you as a consumer of healthcare, doing something about it and advocating for yourself to make sure that you get the best care that you can get. So you can always reach out to me, and I can help you figure out what medical professional you need to be working with, and where they are in relation to you, whether that's me at AMP or somebody else. And then that's it. So this is just the contact info. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably know all of these things or have access to them. All of our consultations are free. I have no problems getting on a 30-minute phone call with somebody and helping guide them to get the appropriate care that they need. Yeah, so thanks for listening to this. I hope there was some value in it. I will be bringing out the whiteboard for the next few talks and explaining things like tendon health and bone stress injuries and types of things that you can be doing proactively, right, to set yourself up for success. And we can't prevent injuries, but we can at least mitigate risk and do enough of the right things so that our bodies are able to tolerate the demands of our sport that we love so much. Thank you again for listening.